Welcome back to KTN Prime. Tonight, our headlines are heavy with grief, but heavier still with a profound sense of frustration. At least 16 young lives have been tragically lost at Utumishi Girls Academy. Dozens of others have been injured, while 71 students have been discharged. Several remain hospitalized. As the affected families continue seeking answers and accountability, the rest of the nation is trapped in a devastatingly familiar cycle. We have seen it all before. A deadly school fire breaks out. Senior government officials rush to the scene. Somber public statements are read. Investigations are launched, and sweeping reforms are promised with absolute finality. Yet history shows that once the funerals conclude and public attention shifts, the political will fades. The recommendations gather dust, and our boarding schools slide right back into vulnerable complacency. Now, joining me in studio to shed more light on emergency response, quality control, and school safety are two men at the center of policy and safety enforcement. Allow me to start with Boaz Waruku, who's joining us in studio. He's a policy advisor at Elimu Bora Working Group. Thanks for your time, Boaz. Karibu sana to our studios.
Thank you.
And Benjamin Mwangi as well, who's a coordinator of the Occupational and Fire Safety Department at the Kenya Red Cross Society. Karibu sana to our studios.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, welcome to KTN Prime. Remember, tomorrow's edition of Kenya's Bold newspaper will be leading with that tragic news on the unfortunate fire tragedy that occurred at the Utumishi Girls Academy Senior School. Heart-wrenching, that's the headline Kenyans will be waking up to tomorrow, even as the byline focuses on the implementation gaps that have been witnessed ever since these fire tragedies have occurred time and time again in the country. Now, Boaz, I'd like to begin with you, even as you pass your condolence message, because there's so many families that have been affected by that unfortunate turn of events. Kenya is not short of safety blueprints. Following past tragedies that we've mentioned time and time again, Changuli, Moi Girls, most recently the Hillside and Arusha fire tragedy, multiple government inquiries and comprehensive policy reviews were conducted, leading to the creation of the Safety Standards Manual for schools. Yet, here we are again. So why does the enforcement of these fire safety standards remain so dangerously inconsistent across our boarding schools?
Thank you, Jesse. Would you allow me to just read a small message from one of the parents who lost their loved ones in Arusha Hillside?
Yes, please.
I received this message this evening.
And you know it's a parent?
This is a parent.
Okay.
We have been helping them to follow and get justice. And I'll not mention the name.
Yes.
But on the platform, this is the message that she sent. I'll just read it as it is, just a small paragraph. A new drama with new actors, knowing that the outcome is the same. I pity the poor parents grieving their daughters. I have not responded. I received it late after I'd received the call to come back here. And Jesse, you'd see that we are dealing with what those who are not close to these incidences think are just statistics. Here, the media house KTN has mentioned a number of these. It is painful. It's painful. As a Elimu Bora Working Group dealing with such sensitive matters, we send our condolences to these families. And indeed, we just ask ourselves what more needs to be done so that these children are saved from preventable fires and tragedies. Because indeed, this is not the first time that such matters are being dealt with. Later in the afternoon, we were still having a conversation and consulting and caucusing. And then it emerged that actually the Bombolulu report, Changuli report, the only differences we found in those reports are the names of the schools and the dates. The rest, including the recommendations, are the same. So what could be the problem? Is it that our leadership that are in charge of the schools do not really care much about this? Because losing a a child is one too many. But when we keep on losing many and many and many, look at the 67 Changuli, look at the 21 Endarasha, now 16. And we just hope that we will not continue counting this. The recommendations by task forces that were formed immediately after these things happened, there are task forces that are formed to investigate and to tell the people what really happened. And attempts even to take decisive action. Like Changuli, there was a lot more of even prosecution of those who are considered culpable, but they don't go too far. For instance, the recommendations of compensation that we witnessed in the Changuli, where they were recommending the award of 850,000 per head. What's that, even when you start comparing with the lives that are lost? So to us, we are saying complete dereliction of duty by the duty bearers. And we start by placing this at the doorstep of the CS in charge of education. Because the primary duty that this CS has is first to ensure that our children are at school and learning, and secondly, that they are safe when they are going there, that the parents who are back at home, whether they are day schools or boarders, the parents are continuing their lives knowing there's somebody in charge, not to be called. And the scenes that you're seeing, to be told that something so devastating has happened. Yeah. You've seen even parents taking off, rushing there, that let me just go and see what has happened, and even other problems on the way. So essentially what you're saying, can the CS do the honorable thing? I think ameshindwa na kazi. That's first thing. Okay. The appointing authority must be very decisive. For how long will we be mourning the loss of the little ones? For causes which I've said are preventable. Look at the school, look at the dormitories that we're being shown. As we're speaking, Limubora members, there are those who went down there, but even from the media that you've been sharing, those dormitories do not qualify to be places where we ensure our daughters are sleeping well. The recommendations end based on the guidelines, the safety manual that was prepared. It's so clear that they were not compliant. Where are the officers who are supposed to be inspecting and periodically reviewing if there's any lag on the standards or the safety standards? What happened? What has really also happened to the council that Migos was supposed to be establishing? The Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, whose responsibility, among others, is to continue visiting these institutions to inspect the standards of the dormitories, of the classrooms, of the eateries, the eating places, wherever the children or learners are, so that we get convinced that they know what they're doing and that they are really doing the right thing to protect our children. So we have a lot of problems. Enforcement is not being done. The CS is sleeping on the job. If you can't do the job, please, there are many other Kenyans out there who can do the job. The president, you have many other friends who can do the job. Can you just get one of them who is serious on the job? Because this one is not doing the job. And that's why we are losing far too many. So the instruments are there.
Yeah.
The instruments are there.
Is lacking.
Enforcement is zero.
And maybe that's why there's a breakdown between the policy formulation and the ground level implementation. Benjamin, I'd like to hear from you, even as you pass the condolences, of course. As Red Cross, you've been on the front lines of these tragedies time and time again, managing evacuation, hospitalization of survivors, psychosocial support. Perhaps let's start with psychosocial support. What sort of support do you give to the affected families? How crucial has your role been, especially this time round during the fire tragedy in Gilgil, Nakuru County?
Thank you so much for having us in studio today to share our views in terms of this unfortunate tragedy today.
Yeah.
And let me begin by passing our heartfelt condolence to the parents, guardians, and all stakeholders who are mourning their loved ones tonight following that tragedy. On behalf of the entire Red Cross fraternity, we feel for them and we are sorry for the tragedy. Now, coming to your question, and the moment we received this news, of course, the Red Cross is devolved structures in terms of how we manage emergencies. Mm-hmm. We have the county offices in Nakuru, and we have the regional office that deals with the disasters and emergencies across the country. So the first thing that normally happens in situations such as this is we have our Red Cross Action Team that is on standby 24/7. And the moment the news was received, they were the first ones to be dispatched on the ground. And the moment they realized that it's true there's a fire, then they swing into action in terms of trying to give support to the affected, who are the parents. And also, there was also a coordination with the regional and the national office. And there was also a backup team that was deployed from Nairobi also to go and support the team on the ground in terms of psychosocial support, evacuation of the affected, and also now trying to restore family links with the missing persons.
Okay.
So specifically on your question of mental health and psychosocial support, in such a situation, the first thing is the psychological first aid that works in the core principles of you look, you listen, and you link. What are you looking for? You are looking for the victims in distress. In this case, we are talking about the parents or the guardians who are up and up looking for their loved ones. You are looking at the signs and symptoms of distress also.
Okay.
And then you listen to the immediate needs that are there, and then you link them to professional help that is required. So of course, you realize there's a lot of denial at these first stages and anger and trying to bargain here and there with the situation. So you link them to professional help, even as you continue now calming down those parents and everyone involved in the operation.
Is this extended to some of the learners as well?
Absolutely,
okay,
because now even immediate also,
okay.
because they are also worried.
All right.
Because remember, they are the first-hand people who experienced what happened.
True.
The rest of us are just responding, but their fellow learners experienced what happened. So they are also given that psychological first aid.
Now tell me this, because first responders routinely encounter structural hazards, barred windows, we've heard of the narratives, locked emergency exits, non-functional fire extinguishers. Based on your department's assessment, what are the most critical fire safety lapses that continue to turn these school dormitories into death traps during such infernos, which is quite unfortunate here?
That's a good question. And when it comes to fire safety, it's a very critical component that every occupation or every setup needs to take very seriously.
Okay.
And there are three aspects that people need to take into consideration. One being prevention. And under prevention, there is always the aspect of engineering phase. So when you are designing the dormitories, for example, what are the exit points? How are they designed? Do you have grills in windows? And the policy and safety manuals do not allow such kind of things that will prevent people from escaping. Then, of course, there is education or training. You need to train people on how to evacuate. So even doing drills that help learners and everybody within the school to prepare in the event of a fire to escape. So drills are also very important. And the other aspect under prevention is enforcement. Okay. So if you have all these structures laid down, but you are not enforcing those policies, then there is a gap.
All right.
Yes.
That's proper to note. Boaz, back to you, because we understand investigations are ongoing to get to the bottom of this particular incident and what caused it in the first place. But when such tragedies occur, the blame is usually passed down to a local school management. The recurring nature of such incidences points to a deeper structural failure, as you've mentioned. How much of this disaster should be blamed on administrative negligence at the school level within these schools versus a total failure of regulatory oversight that you highlighted? Enforcement is what's lacking, and we have Ministry of Education quality assurance officers who should be following up on this.
It is always good to look for who to blame at such a point. But this is a whole chain of things and actors. We'd be expecting that at the school level, the established committees that are supposed to deal with emergency and disaster preparedness should be in place and working. That they are regularly being activated and even refreshed, and that anybody and everybody within the school, they know that those are people who have been inducted, who continue to be engaged even through the drills, like what Benjamin is saying, so that you are on toes. Most of the time, you are on toes. It's supposed to be more of a systemic way, just the same way that many people, I mean, in a day, the Muslims praying 4 times, or is it 5 times? The Christians, we wake up, and in the evening, in the morning, evening, at least you have say a prayer. This is supposed to be the part of the drill process that makes you be alert and conscious of the environment. So that is a responsibility, yes, that is anchored at the school level. But the school, first, if the system, the standards are not met, the school might not understand and might not know that they have not met the safety standards. And that is why we require, and we have the, currently they are using the DQASOS, the Directorate of Quality Standards and Assurance. That's department. But I did mention that those are the existing infrastructure before the Basic Education Act came to being. The Basic Education Act had envisaged a different infrastructure for supporting that. That is why it created an independent council called Educational Standards and Quality Assurance Council, VIDE Section 64. If you look at that, I think some of the very specifics, these are the ones who would monitor to ensure that every school, upon being inspected and granted, like those that are being registered, that they confirm that they are compliant with the safety and security standards. After that, they are the ones who will periodically be coming back to check, to inspect. And then they pass this over now to the ministry to see that what else is to be done. In fact, like the same way that the Ministry of Health, when they go to inspect the places where eateries and all are being done, or even where the public toilets are supposed to be established, if they are not being done well, they normally give a notice and tell you, if you are not compliant, if the situation is so bad, they say, we just close. But if it is a situation which can be remedied, they give you timelines. That is exactly what the council and its officers should have been doing.
All right.
Where we are at, there's nobody giving that feedback. The ministry, the Jogo House people and their agencies at the county level, they are expected to be the ones that go to check, and they are the ones to say it is okay. If it is not okay, they are the ones to remedy. In other words, they are the investigators. They are the prosecutors, and they are the judges determining. It is that work was split, was separated. And that is why the council was supposed to be done. If that has not been executed, it's the same reason why we continue having these things recurring each and every time. And we call upon, I think, the president, because the minister has now been defeated. The CS has been defeated to deal with these matters. And I think the parents are tired of mourning their loved ones every year.
It's quite unfortunate, and we need more proactive rather than reactive approach. In 30 seconds, as we finalize, because time is not on our side, when it comes to the preparedness and drills, What exactly is the deficit when it comes to this routine, practical fire safety drills and emergency preparedness trainings for both students and staff in Kenyan schools? Because it seems preparedness currently is treated like a luxury rather than a mandatory life-saving skill. Briefly.
For where we sit, the most important thing that is lacking is the proactiveness. The policies are there, but they have been ignored for quite some time, and a very long time, so to speak. And if you look at the safety manual for safety in schools, if you look from page 9 to 13, it speaks of the infrastructure that is supposed to be put in place in every school. A school is a workplace, and the first thing that must be there is a safety committee. And the safety committee must ensure there are safety structures and infrastructure that protects those students, even when parents are not there, teachers are not there, even when they are on their own. Fire extinguishers, for example, smoke detectors, heat sensors, fire blankets, and all those aspects that can make these students just jump, pick a fire extinguisher, having been trained on how to use it to suppress that fire and save their lives. So even other people will come in and make sure that they are supporting them to do whatever they had already started doing. So there is laxity of enforcement of existing policies, and that is the main challenge that we have. Now, the school heads, teachers, students themselves, non-teaching staff and the teaching staff all have a role to play in ensuring that we are proactive and we prevent these fires from happening, even as we speak of other things to be put in place.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is a conversation that is ongoing. We've barely touched the surface, but that's all the time we had. But thank you so much for your time, gentlemen, even as the country comes to terms, as emotions run high following that unfortunate turn of events that led to 16 young lives being lost at Utumishi Girls Academy. Questions are raised. We need to prevent such tragedies from occurring time and time again. Let's be more proactive rather than reactive. And those are some of the questions we posed to our panelist, Benjamin Mwangi, who's a coordinator at the Occupational and Fire Safety Department at Kenya Red Cross Society. Thanks for your contribution. And Boaz Waroko, always a pleasure to have you with us. He's a policy advisor at Elimu Bora Working Group. Trust KTN to keep you updated even as we wait for developments tomorrow early morning. As we understand, the 16 bodies have been ferried to Naivasha morgue. The identification and DNA analysis process is still ongoing, but as we've heard, Red Cross is on site to provide psychosocial support to those who have been affected in one way or the other, even as education stakeholders will sustain pressure to make sure there's accountability for those lives that have been lost. We take a short break. Keep it KTN Prime.
Renewed